Hello, and welcome back to our final day of the Creative Christianity Summit 2022. We've made it to day 5, and today we are exploring all things taste and mouths. And we've heard from Paul so far, just on that really great session, exploring food and what we eat and what things taste like. And we have also had some worship with Lou and Nathan. So today is a bit more of a live day, and we are joined by Sarah Beavis, who is a known face and name to many people in the Creative Christianity Summit, because Sarah is the Cheerfully Given Community Manager. So Sarah is spends her days making sure that everyone has what they need, and making sure that the details that you need to like log into things and all of that kind of thing are all sorted, and that you've got the information that you need. So her name pops up in emails and in our new community space and on Facebook groups. And I'm delighted to have you here for an interview for this year's summit, Sarah. And we're talking about all things taste and smell today. So we've got 2 senses.
Yeah.
But maybe if you could just tell us a bit more about yourself beyond the Cheerfully Given intro. Who are you apart from that?
I am Sarah. So I am been married, I think we're 16 years this year. We got married when I was 19. He was 20. So it's my husband Ross, and we've got 3 kids, 8, 6 and 3. So we call them our beautiful chaos because they cause a lot of chaos. And yeah, we live in Nottingham. We've lived here since we got married. And yeah, I work for Cheerfully Given. My husband's an IT professional. And yeah, we attend Trent Vineyard. We've got good groups of friends. We're, just a normal family.
As normal as you can be when you work for a tech startup and have 3 children.
Yeah, that's kind of normal.
Yeah. So what is your favorite kind of creativity?
My favorite, I really enjoy doing paint pouring, but I'm rubbish at it. So it's kind of one of those, I'll do it, but it's not for show. Or my other thing is Lego building, which is quite a structured creative, but I like it when something comes together and you're like, oh, that's amazing. So yeah, that's my kind of creativity.
So we're doing an interview about losing your taste and smell. Tell us how that happened and what the deal is with your taste and your smell.
Yes. So December 2020, both me and my husband woke up one Monday morning with high temperatures and just not feeling very well, and we're like, oh, okay, we've done PCR tests before, they've always come back negative, we'll pop down and get it done and we'll go back to normal tomorrow. And then the next day the results came back as positive, and we're both just like, oh, okay. And so the Tuesday evening my husband was cooking pasta, and I suddenly realized I could not smell it at all, and just like got like face into the hot pan, kind of, nope, I can't smell this. And so basically from that point onwards to now, I haven't smelled properly. So we're talking, we've just hit 18 months of no proper smell and taste. I'm better than I was. I had, by about May 2021, I had some smell and taste back, but then in the June, July time, I got what's called parosmia, which is the smell and taste distortion. So I often either don't smell anything or I smell and taste it wrong. So there are very few things that taste normal. Halloumi is one of the weird things that tastes exactly how it should. So that gets eaten quite a lot just for some normality. But yeah, so it all just went, and it hasn't come back, and it's not been the best experience for any of us. Like as a family, it's had quite an impact. So.
So for the first sort of 5 months after you had COVID, before you developed the parosmia, what was that like in terms of the that like initial period? Like at what point did you think, oh, okay, maybe this is going to be long term? And did you have like hope every day that today was going to be the day that you'd smell and taste again? Like what was that first period of time like?
So we got my brain just stopped working. We got COVID about 10 days before Christmas. So our last day of our isolation was 24th of December. So Christmas Day came, And obviously we were really ill. Thankfully, Ross, my husband's parents, offered to cook Christmas dinner and just drop it at our house. And my dad was brave enough to come and risk the COVIDness to help with the kids. But we it was just really isolating, just sitting and eating that Christmas dinner. I mean, even before that, neither of us were really well enough to cook. So we were really blessed. People gave us money or sent us takeaways, and just sitting and eating a meal, even like all 5 of us there, and just not being able to taste anything. I mean, the number of meals I sat and cried at, it was so isolating and so just sad and not fully understand. I remember when people were talking about those 3 main symptoms of COVID, and knowing that people had really suffered with things like heart problems and stuff like that. It was all that kind of thing that I was scared of with COVID. But then I'd never really worried about that, losing your smell and taste. But when it actually happened, I was just like, this is hideous. It's so isolating. But obviously it's Christmas, so we'd done a lot of our Christmas shopping before we'd got COVID. So my husband had bought me some candles, and every day I would get this box of candles out and sit and try and sniff it and be like, can I smell it yet? And be like, no. And it would go back on the shelf. And then the next day I'd be like, well, maybe today. So the hope was still there. I read about people like, 2-3 weeks, it'll come back. And then you're like, well, it's like 6. Oh, it's 12 weeks and it's still not back. And just that kind of, what's going to happen? But I was always really, really grateful that I hadn't got this thing that I'd read about where people could just smell cigarette smoke, or you could just smell sewage, and being like, every time somebody was like, I can't smell or taste anything, but I'm just grateful it's not that. And then it switched to being that. And I was just like, no, I was grateful. And almost it created quite a reaction in me that shocked me, I think.
So when had you been unwell before the prosmia developed? Was it just an overnight thing again with that, or what? And how did you know that you had suddenly developed prosmia?
So we were eating a pie from a local butcher's, and I took a mouthful and felt like I'd eaten chemicals. So I made everyone stop eating, because I was like, no, don't eat anything. I think there's something wrong with this pie. And my husband was like, I don't think there is. I've eaten half. He carried on eating, and it was like, he's fine. But my body told me I'd eaten chemicals. My mouth felt burn. It was really hideous. It's like, just try a bit of the potato. And it's like, no, the potato is just as bad. But it was just that one occasion. And so we didn't really think anything of it. And then a couple of days later, we had another meal. I think it was something with mashed potato again. And it happened again, and just that sudden realization, there's something really wrong here. And if I look back now, there were things before that had started tasting bad gradually, which is the way they sort of talk about prosmia. It gradually becomes bad. And so when I look back, I was like, oh yeah, the drink I was drinking didn't always taste quite right, but I didn't question it. Or I'd have a hot chocolate and it would taste funny, but it was just, just accepted that it was just funny. But actually, now I know it was distorted and bad. And it just gradually got worse from that point. So more and more things became not safe foods. And it was just a challenge with meals. And is this normal food going to be tasteless, or is it going to be hideous? And not knowing which one was going to sort of be the thing that was on the plate. So it was tough.
How has it impacted, is it any better, and how has it impacted life? There's 2 questions there.
Yeah. So even when I had no smell or taste, after about a month or so, I could taste whether something was salty or sweet. I know Paul was talking about those 5 kind of key groups. And although I couldn't taste what they were, I knew whether they were salt or sweet or spice, or savory, those kind of things. So that kind of helped give me a bit of hope, I think. And then as we've got further through, mostly for me, frustratingly, sweet things are mostly back to normal. But it's even this weekend, I've discovered I can eat strawberries again. I haven't been able to eat strawberries because they've tasted hideous. So there are still things that daily are coming back. But there are also things that I keep losing, like last weekend, me and my son were in the garden and we were planting some tomato plants in a bag that had some manure in it, and it smelled like manure. I was like, great, it smells like it's supposed to. Bit gross, but at least it's meant to smell like that. My husband came out into the garden and he'd been cooking bolognese, and the smell of the bolognese was worse than the manure. Well, I've been eating bolognese the whole way through, so it's just this thing that's like been a safe food has suddenly become this not safe food, and it just it makes food a really unenjoyable thing. I've always struggled with food because of weight gain across for all of my life, and for me the biggest frustration is that the food that I know is good for me is often the food that tastes bad. So then I'm eating the bad foods to fill up, and so it becomes this cycle of kind of, I want to eat the nice stuff, but the nice stuff is bad. Like it just, there's a lot of internal fights, I think. And just like wanting to set a good example to the children, like you eat your fruit and veg. Well, if your mum's not eating her fruit and veg because it doesn't taste nice, it's not easy to kind of instill that into them. The older two have got a good understanding of it, and they know often I will sit and eat a plate of food and I'll get about halfway through and I'll be like, I can't eat anymore. And actually my 8-year-old now will go, have you hit that point? And I'm like, yeah, I've hit that point. And so just trying to keep it in a way that they will understand, so that it doesn't become something that affects how they eat, has been quite an internal battle for me, and like almost forcing myself to eat things so that they don't then not want to eat food and things like that has been an added level of stress, I think. But it is, there are improvements, things get better every day. So we had 2 days last week where I ate a whole meal. Like that was like the little things you get excited about, but it was a big deal. So yeah.
What are some of the practical ways that it has sort of impacted family life, maybe social life? What are some of the like tangible sort of experiences that have been impacted because of the issues with your taste and smell?
Yeah, so one of the biggest things has actually been church. So obviously for a long time we couldn't go to church, and actually then going back, having so many smells in one room has I've had times when the smells have been so bad it's made me have migraines. So it's become almost an additional barrier to getting to church. We were at church last Sunday and somebody near me must have had aftershave on, and to me it was this really hideous smell. So I had to go and sit outside. Thankfully there's speakers at our church outside, so I could still hear the talk, but I sat there sort of shivering, thinking I can go inside and I can sit near the aftershave, or I can stay out here and be cold. And I was like, I'm going to be cold. So I think it's made, we've been very cautious with COVID anyway, so we hadn't particularly gone back to restaurants and things like that. But some of that I think is the not wanting to put anybody at risk, but I think some of it is just me being like, well, if I walk into a restaurant, what is that smell going to be manageable? And we actually had a rearranged holiday from 2020 to this year and spent 3 weeks out in America, and we ate out a lot, and it was something that was a big anxiety for me. So like, is this going to ruin the holiday? But actually my smell and taste was at, well, maybe not so much my smell, but my taste was at its best while we were away. There's all sorts of theories about when you're not stressed and when you're in a different environment, actually improving it. And thankfully for me, that did seem to be the case. And so for 3 weeks, I had a bit of a kind of respite from it. Not that things necessarily all tasted good, but it wasn't as bad. It's caused a lot of anxiety, and trying to put that anxiety down and step over that and be like, no, we're going to live anyway. We got COVID again this year. The kids are really good at bringing it home from school. And the biggest fear for me with that was that it would make my smell and taste completely reset, and that I could have to redo this whole thing again. And just, that was like a really big fear, but actually God was really gracious in that it didn't happen. That didn't change it. It possibly did affect my parosmia about 3 months later, and possibly made it worse for a couple of weeks, but it certainly didn't reset, which was my big fear. So yeah.
I think Becky and I were both praying that that bout of COVID would like undo it and your taste and smell would just be back to normal again.
There was also like people going for vaccines. When they'd had their vaccine, they'd be like, it's reset my thing. I was like, maybe that'll be me. And then you get your vaccine, and you're like, no, it's not worked. Still grateful for the vaccine, but I would have liked it to have fixed the long COVID.
And what are things like grocery shopping and cooking like for you now that you can't taste or smell?
Yeah, so supermarkets just don't smell of anything. Now I know they like logically, I know a supermarket has a smell, but I can't smell anything when I'm in a supermarket, which I kind of miss it. You know, like you walk into Asda and you can smell bread. Like I miss that smell. But like walking into John Lewis and you can't smell the perfumes, that kind of.
Like, I'd actually be down for that one because they give me such a bad headache.
I've definitely had a few sort of experiences where I've been like, well, maybe it's good that I can't smell that right now. Like, sort of finding the grateful in it. I haven't really been able to cook since. So my husband's had to take over. I mean, he did a lot of our cooking anyway because he enjoys it. But
is that because it makes you feel physically unwell because of the way that the smells happen, or does cooking feel harder to cook because you can't smell things in the same way and check that things taste okay?
So when I'm in anything in the kitchen, so like I hate that I can't sniff a bottle of milk and check that it smells okay, or like if you sometimes you look at the ham and you're like, oh, is that okay? And your default is to smell it. I can't do that. So for me, the kitchen does feel a little bit frightening. Like, who could I give food poisoning to today? But actually, for most of it, it has been because the smell, if I can smell the food cooking for too long, by the time we actually sit down to eat it, I feel too ill to eat anything. And so there have been times where I've had to go for a walk before dinner to make sure that I can't smell it while it's cooking, or we've got doors shut to try and stop smells from spreading. But it's affected. Like I love baking, and like my daughter's birthday cake and my son's birthday cake, I ended up buying pre-made cake and just being like, I'll ice it, but I can't bake it because I can't promise that it's going to smell okay or taste okay. So like, I'm better off buying this. So it's definitely affected what I'm willing to do in the kitchen and how I approach that. It's also a safety thing. I've got used to have much stronger smell than my husband. So I was like, I can smell something, can you go and check nothing's on fire kind of person. And so for the first few weeks afterwards, I was like, what if there's a fire? How you're not going to smell it? But actually since sort of found out like that could be part of the reason why I have parosmia, is because I have a stronger sense of smell. It seems to have bigger impacts, and there's all sorts of research going on, but there's no answer. They don't understand why it happens. And I remember getting really upset one day about 2 weeks into it and being like, why is this upsetting me so much? And my husband just looking at me going, you've lost 2 of your senses. If you lost your eyesight and your hearing, you would not question why you felt sad. And it's like, oh no, it's okay. This is meant to be sad. I shouldn't just be getting on with it. I shouldn't just be, my default is to just push through and everything will be okay, hopefully in the end. But actually to feel that grief of, there's 2 major things that connect, you know, like Paul was saying, and our smell and taste, they connect us with the world around us. You lose that's a big deal. But there's no, if you lost your eyesight, or if you lost your hearing, there would be help out there, and no one would be expecting you to get on with life as if nothing had changed. And I think when you lose your smell and taste, you look the same, you act the same. And so I think people miss that actually it has this impact on every day, and you just get on with it. But actually there's that underlying, this is really rubbish and this is really hard. It's been a challenge.
What have you maybe learned as you've been going through the last 18 months? Because I know that you're a very reflective person. We're all overthinkers here. And I know that you also do have a really strong faith in Jesus as well. So what have been some of the sort of reflections and learnings and things that you've been working through as you've been going through it?
Yeah. So we've I feel like I've done a lot of sort of reading about spiritual formation over the years and how God kind of tries to teach us the same things through different experiences. And we did like 3.5 years of infertility, and it's like God really worked in me on my patience. And then I'm like, in this situation, like being patient and hoping that God will like heal it, and being like, God, I think we're done with patience, and being like, that's probably my sign that we're not done with patience. But I think for me, one of the big things that I've been challenged on is that the idea of the lost art of lament. And we're so quick to make everything okay, or to try and say, oh, this bad thing happened, but it's okay, or just like not just sit in that grief or that pain or that sorrow. And actually, in the Bible, over and over again, I mean, so many of the Psalms are lament, they are grief, they are, but God, you are still good, even though. And it's not just writing off that bad, hard thing, but being like, God, you are good, even when this is hard, not you are good and I'm going to ignore this hard thing. And so I've tried to kind of push a bit into the whole book on lament, but I think we try and avoid it because it's hard, it's a painful place to be, but actually it's really needed, and it's how we're truthful and honest with God. He's bigger than us. He can hack me, you know, when I sort of like in a moment of despair, I'm sort of like shouting, just take this away. He gets it. He gets grief. He understands it, and he can handle it when I'm truthful with him. I still recognize that he is good, but this is not good. And just, yeah, like when when Lou was singing the other day with the I can't remember the name of the song, but I wrote the words down. It was you turn mourning to dancing, you give beauty for ashes, you turn shame into glory. You're the only one that can. It's like God's the only one who can come and do something big and fix it. And he doesn't do it to us, but I can keep turning back to him, and just trying to hold on to that. And you know, I don't believe that God does things so that we learn a lesson, but I am very much I like to know the reason, and I like to look back and be like, oh, I can see what God was doing then, or what was happening there, or what I've learned because of it. And I hope that there is more of that revelation to come, even though at the moment it's just a bit like, no, I'd just like it to stop. I like to taste food properly, and yeah, to take away that kind of restriction on enjoying the world, like what Paul was saying earlier, like when you sit and have a meal with people, it's part of community, and I love community, and to be cautious of community because something might taste bad is a frustrating place to be.
It's amazing to think about the new creation and what things will taste and smell like in the new creation, and everything's renewed, isn't it? I just
hot cross buns.
Yeah, they're like a church staple, so they must be in the new creation.
Yeah. I'm hoping not quiches though. It's not my.
Quiche is not something that I've ever fully got on board with as a food group. So the concept of eggs is something that I will I struggle with as a food.
Pass, isn't it?
Oh dear. When you have been struggling with things like going to church, for instance, what have been some of the ways that you've met with Jesus in between, when places that we would normally go and feel refreshed and fulfilled have been a challenge?
Yeah, so I really love my job. So as well as this, I work for I do the community management for the Cheerful Business Club, and we have monthly prayer meetings and just faith-filled conversations in the mentoring sessions as well. And I think that there have been times when those have been the thing that have kept me going. Like a strong prayer meeting, it's just needed sometimes. But like our small group has been a big thing, and the Lectio 365 app has been a big help for me, because it doesn't involve being somewhere out of where home is. You know, like we all know that when you go into somebody else's home, the home smells of something, whereas my house you don't know what your own house smells like, and so you just like, it's just a safe place. So anything that I can do at home is definitely a win. We've tried to be more consistent with going to church, and I just do what I need to do. So if I need to sit outside, I'll go outside. But we want the kids at church. It's important for them. Our church have been brilliant. They've had stuff online the whole time, but that's been quite hard to access as a parent because there's 3 kids around. So it has been more of a challenge than I would want it to be. But God is good. Reading books. I'm a big put on some worship music while I'm doing something. Particularly when the boys in particular were little, we used to listen to the Seeds family worship, which is all Bible verses sung, and so you get these Bible verses, just you learn them because you learn the songs. And so actually I found myself going back to listening to those even without the kids around.
Seed songs.
Sorry,
is that the Seed Song channel on YouTube?
I don't know if they've got a YouTube channel. I've always listened. We had CDs, and now we've got them on Apple Music. But yeah, they've
we used to at St Crispin's have every week. I say used to because Andrew and I go to St Gabriel's now because that's where he's the vicar. But obviously St Crispin's is still there if you're ever in Highbury. But St Crispin's has a Seed Song YouTube video every week where you learn a memory verse and sing the song. And yeah.
They're not too cheesy, but they're enough there that the verse, and then you can get that verse just stuck in your head. And sometimes you just need a Bible verse to just make the day a little bit less what it is.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me about it. It's obviously something that you're still dealing with, so there's a lot of emotions and everything attached to it, and I'm sure that everyone's really enjoyed hearing you tell a bit more of your story. So thank you for being willing to do it even when you're in the midst of going through this particular valley.
Pleasure.
And yeah, we'll hopefully hear from you again soon. There's potentially going to be a talk from Sarah that we're going to add in the next few weeks. So we'll keep you posted about that one. But it's been a joy to chat to you. And if you are around at 7 p.m, we're going to be doing a session looking at virtual reality and the metaverse from a Christian perspective, like how should we respond as Christians? And then at 8 p.m, we've got our end of day live stream, and we're going to be giving away memberships to our Bible Journaling Club and also the Cheerful Business Club tonight because we ran out of time last night. So I'm going to go and rest my voice until 7 p.m. But it would be awesome to see you at 7 for that as we think about what virtual reality looks like. And as we're being faced with this more and more, it's a conversation I think is important to have, and to have a really good sense of what the way of Jesus looks like as technology develops, and so that we don't just get swept up in something that everybody is doing without considering it. So we'll join online live here again on StreamYard for that. And if you've got any questions, you can bring them along. It'd be great to hear other people's perspectives as well, if anyone else has been thinking through all of this. And we've got that at 7 p.m. and then our end of day live stream at 8 p.m. as well. So thank you again, Sarah. It's been a joy to have you, and we'll see you all again very soon. Bye, everyone.
Bye.